Hola, I'm Joe Partavilla, and I'm old enough to remember when MTV played music videos, and long before they followed the exploits of young Americans on the southern shores of New Jersey. This week, I'm joined by Jon Niermann, the CEO and co-founder of Loop Media, the first media company focused on fully integrated 360-degree engagement of music videos and other premium short-form content by consumers and businesses. Hey, Jon, how are you?
Hey, Joe, how you doing?
I'm doing very well. So I'm excited to talk to you for a couple of different levels. First, I want to find out more about Loop Media. You guys are leaning into, I'm a Gen Xer, so I remember when music videos were a thing and people loved watching them on MTV. So it seems like you're bringing back the old school music video, but bringing it into the modern age.
Bringing it back, bringing it way back. I was the same way. I grew up with MTV and music videos kind of got relegated after that to YouTube when YouTube came around. So there hasn't been this great curated experience, and there's still very powerful short form, great story videos. And yeah, Loop's bringing it back in a big way, in home and out of home.
So I can't remember the last time I saw a music video on television. So how does Loop Media work? Is it streaming? Is it on demand? Talk to me about that.
Well, it's funny, just kind of touching on that YouTube thing again. When we started looking at this around 2015, we said, just to drop a couple of stats here, about 40% of YouTube views are music videos, believe it or not. And 23 of 25 all-time videos on YouTube are music videos. So it's not just all the wacky little water skiing squirrels and stuff you might see there, but people really still watch it, and it's the place they find them. But it's not a great experience, right? So we wanted to get in there and create something that was more curated, that the people could create playlists, they could share it together, they could watch it together. Of course, watch parties have become very topical now, but that's kind of how Loop started, was just to figure out how do we do the music video business today for this generation and for any generation, frankly.
So it's streaming with a little splash of social media to it as well, because there is this interactivity with people on the actual app with the videos, right?
Exactly. So you've got that. We've got the pure linear channels. So the streaming services today, like you see like Hulu and all those guys at Roku, and, they have so many channels that, we wanted to get out there with music video channels. So if you just want that pure linear experience like you used to watch, you could get that. But if you want something more customized and you want to get on your mobile phone and do all that social stuff, you could do that as well. The other component we have is out of home, the B2B and businesses and serving them. So we're really trying to cover all the bases here.
And Jon, something smart that you guys do at Loop Media is you allow people to access the content not only on their phones, but on their big screens at home. Unlike that other company, Quibi, that did those short form videos, but you could only see it on your phone. So you guys are basically the anti-Quibi, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I just thought that business model was crazy. I don't think you need to spend almost $2 billion in original content, put a big name on it and say Steven Spielberg made this short, so therefore you need to watch it. You look what's happening today. People are throwing up their own content, TikTok, it's authentic. So for us, we're taking libraries that already exist and we're curating them in a better way, a more accessible way, and still creating an authentic experience. So yeah, we're very much the anti-Quibi approach.
Good idea. I think the anti-Quibi approach will be taken with many new startup digital companies. But let's talk about the ones that are doing it right, the Netflix, the Amazons, the Disneys of the world. It seems like it's starting to get a bit of a crowded space. I mean, what's your thoughts about that?
I'd say we're kind of in the middling. I think you will see consolidation. And if you kind of go back to the earlier ones, if you go back to Netflix, you go back to Amazon, when they started getting on the media side, they were also just basically renting libraries. They weren't doing anything original, and so they got a certain subscriber base, and then they thought, oh, okay, let's create original programming. So in that essence, they're becoming more like an HBO. And they're becoming more like a studio. So then the studios look at that and say, well, wait a minute, we gave them our content to build up that big business. We'll just take that back and create our own business. So it's kind of had this cycle that way where, everybody is jumping in a way. And timing wise for Disney, thank goodness they had that with all going on the past year with the parks and everything. But there's not room for everybody. I do think that there at some point you just can't. I don't know if you can have like every branded studio have a channel and consumers care about it. Disney's got very unique content, so they're going to be a tough one to beat. The others have a little bit of a tougher road to hoe.
You know what it reminds me of, Jon? It's a bit sort of like cable in the 90s when you had that explosion of everyone creating a cable channel. But in this regard, there's the contract-free agreement. So if you decide you want to be on Netflix for 3 or 4 months and all of a sudden like, I'll give that a rest and then come back to it when there's a show comes on. So in a way, I think that helps the model a little bit, and it's like you're not locking people into something, and if they want to come back to something or they offer free trials, that's a little helpful. Whereas back in the day, you were forced to have 75 channels that you only watched about 3 of them.
100%. And free is kind of the key word now, right? Because people do want to experiment and they don't want to be locked in. And if they want an experience that doesn't have ads, they have the opportunity to do that with some sort of upgrade usually. Now, some of these services, obviously, even their quote unquote free service, has ads, but premium service has ads as well. So people are going about that a different way. But I think you're absolutely right. It's funny, for out of home, we use a similar analogy that if you think of kind of businesses today, they just have to turn on cable and satellite because that's really what feeds their businesses. You don't go to a bar and restaurant and watch Netflix.
Right.
So, Loop is bringing that consumer streaming model into these public venues to give them a chance for that customization, just like the homes.
And you mentioned the pandemic briefly, talking about Disney, but tell us about running Loop. You're into this maybe 4.5, almost 5 years, and then all of a sudden this pandemic hits. What were your initial kind of steps that you took as a company to be like, we got to pump the brakes on budget, we got to slash things? What was your original mindset? Take me back to March of 2020.
Well, it's funny because in February of 2020, we launched our brand new product for businesses, believe it or not. So how bad is that timing? Where we offered a new Loop player where you could go out, you could get this great content and just really customize it, become your own program director, for your venue. If you want music videos to match a certain mood, you could do that. If you want other short form footage like drone footage or silly fail blooper videos, you could pick that up as well. So we had built probably about a year and a half. Our product guys had really built this amazing product, and boom, the door slammed. Now, fortunately, we had already been in the market previously with a different version with a company we bought called Screenplay. And, they had tremendous amount of locations and brands like Yard House and Margaritaville. So really good quality brands that were able to withstand, kind of the economic downturn of the pandemic. But we also had these consumer linear channels that we had to pivot to using that buzzword now, right?
Yeah.
That we had to pivot to in March. And we were able to do that, fortunately. Because the B2B product was ready, we were able to go to a consumer product almost instantaneously and thankfully, and that really helped us.
So is the B2B still as part of Loop's future, or you sort of is it sort of like a backseat at this point, waiting till things clear up?
No, it's actually doing really well right now.
Oh, okay.
And the reason is we disrupted the model of the industry whereas in the past you would have to get this big clunky computer like a Dell computer, a desktop thing, you'd have to hook it up to this elaborate AV system, and you'd have to spend a couple $100 a month. We're going in literally with a free ad-supported service into these public venues. So it makes it very affordable. To your point, there's no contract. See if it works for you. You don't necessarily need to pay for cable or satellite, but you're still able to create this atmosphere. And even with takeout, people are still doing some screens and trying to create some atmosphere. And, various locations around the country have different restrictions right now, but it's doing very, very well because of that price point and because of the value.
Oh, that's great. And so what are some of these locations that you're in? I'm assuming there's I guess restaurants, bars, that kind of thing?
Yeah, think about it this way. Any public venue as small as a single pub to as large as a university campus. And we have seen signups from hair salons, pet stores, auto shops, CBD shops, tattoo parlors. I mean, you could just kind of go down the list of people that are functional and serve a customer in one way or another. And they have a screen. Then they're signing up for Loop. It's for the first time they can really go online to loop.tv and they can download the app and they can get a player, and you could have within 5 minutes, you could have our service streaming in your venue. So
that's awesome.
Multiple verticals. Very cool.
That is cool. I mean, yeah, nowadays using another one of those words that we hear a lot is verticals. You guys have your multiple. So in the future, do you see your B2B product outpacing your consumer product, or do you hope that they're going to be even Steven for you guys?
That's a great question, Joe. And, it's kind of one of it, right now we're pretty much all B2B and shifting to the consumer side. So we're seeing a really nice uptick on the consumer side through some of these linear channel deals and also with an app that we just launched in Mexico for Latin America. So I think our uniqueness is the B2B presence. There really is no big player in this B2B public screen space.
I was just going to ask you that. I didn't know if that was going to throw you off, but is there competition in this space?
Not really. There's no Amazon, Spotify, Google out there servicing that massive market. It's been a lot of digital signage companies and kind of these niche content providers. So Loop is really going after that space. We often say we want a Loop sticker in every window, just like you'll see in Uber Eats or something like that. So that's a Loop-enabled venue. You're going to get some cool entertainment. You could download and interact with your phone as well. You could take playlist home. So that is definitely our goal, is to get a big presence and keep that presence growing on B2B. But the consumer side, just by the sheer scale, can really outgrow that. Awesome. In a few years.
That's great. And so since you're this is not your first rodeo or your first recession rodeo, as I think I just was the first person to say that, but you were back, you've been in this business for quite a while and you survived the '08. How does this compare to '08, '09 to now 2020?
It's funny. When we were doing some funding and we were talking to one of the banks, and one of the guys said to me, he goes, you really need to position yourself as a domain expert. I'm like, what does that mean? Like, do I know the website? He goes, no. Basically, you're old. I'm like, oh, got it. Okay, I know the entertainment business. I've been doing it for 30 years. And I'm like, that's cool. I'm a domain expert. It's funny. I was on the ground in Hong Kong. I'm going to go even forward from what you were talking about, or back further, 2003, when SARS hit, and I was running Disney's international business. So we had to figure that out. And that was kind of spooky and scary because you're right there, and where the kind of the epicenter is going on, and people were leaving. So got a lot of learning out of that. And then obviously, as you say, '08 didn't hit entertainment as much, but still that showed me the platforms were really important, because we were doing a lot of content stuff at that time. And without a home, your content's not going to be seen. So for today, with the diversity of platforms, it's just great to have content. And I think we could not be beholden to one focus like B2B. And fortunately, we had planned at some point to get to consumer market. We just had to accelerate that.
That's excellent. And to accelerate things even further, you've signed a deal with Scooter Braun. Tell us about his involvement with Loop Media.
Yeah, we're really excited about that. One of the things about Scooter is that he's a visionary in the sense that not only does he understand a good artist, but he really understands tech. He's made some early investments in companies like Spotify and Uber, et cetera. So he really has good foresight into what he thinks is interesting. So for him to be interested in Loop, and for us to be able to work with him and kind of get that guidance of how we can work better with artists and managers and the labels, and really create a platform that is quite artist friendly is really important. So to be able to get that sort of mentorship from Scooter is really invaluable for us. So we're very excited about it.
Cool. Can you give me an idea of what his role is going to be day to day with the company?
Well, it's funny. I met Scooter in 2012 when I was doing some Asia stuff, and he was bringing Psy over. If you remember, Gangnam Style.
Absolutely.
We kind of helped him put that together, and that was my first interaction with him. And I saw the magic of Scooter, saying he took this kind of wacky Korean guy singing in Korean with a crazy video and just blew it up. And I was like, whoa. He really does obviously know what he's doing. And, we stayed involved a little bit with the Asia stuff, and he has this great Asia Pop 40 radio market that we've just made a minority acquisition in. So we're looking forward to use that as kind of an expansion path for us across Asia. But he's officially an advisor of the company, along with two of his top lieutenants, Allison and Jen, and we couldn't be more fortunate just to be able to tap into what they know, and just not only that, what they see and kind of how they can help along the way. So it's really about whenever we want to discuss something, we have that opportunity.
And John, I started in the entertainment business in radio, and at the beginning it's local, then it's national. Now it's global. So tell me what it's like to run a company that has such a wide reach and is able to impact people from one side of the globe to the other.
I think it's really exciting. I think it's great for people just to have the broader horizons and really understanding that, there is more entertainment than what you might just watch in your house and even in your state or in this country. Having spent all those years on the ground in Asia, it was enlightening for me just to see the amazing things coming from China or Thailand or India that had such huge followings that really didn't get outside their borders. And I think today, with kind of the borders really kind of aligning, more and more people, especially the younger generation, I think, they're just willing to experiment and just understand that there could be some cool stuff actually coming from India that I might not be able to get here in Kentucky or California. So I love it. I mean, I think you have to develop a global business and a global product. And the good thing about what we're doing with Loop, because it's centered around these short videos and music, is that becomes easy because there's such great music from all parts of the world and such great video. So the easy part means that you've got accessibility to content. The hard part is putting it together properly, finding the right partners, because I do believe that when you go to different parts of the world, local expertise is super important. You can't be so arrogant to think that just because we're successful somewhere, we're going to be successful in another country. And, that's one of my earlier learnings from being a domain expert.
Yes, of course.
is that what you really do need to have that.
You mentioned you spent a lot of time in Asia working with multiple companies out there. Did you ever think there would be a day where a Korean boy band would be like the biggest thing on the planet? In your wildest dreams, would you think that like kids in America would know these Korean songs without even the ability to speak Korean?
No, no. I'm going to say no.
Good.
To be totally honest, yeah, no, I've got to say no to be totally honest, but I'm not shocked by it because at the end of the day, it's entertainment value, and they do a wonderful job of producing and just making it all shiny and glitzy, and people are exploring these days, so it doesn't necessarily surprise me. But no, I didn't predict it.
What do you think it is about? Why do you think the kids are like the BTS phenomenon? Why do you think like these average American kids love it so much? Like, have you ever put you've been, you're a domain expert. What do you think is the reason for that?
I think it's a couple of things. I think one, it is the catchiness and the talent, that they're engaging. There's something appealing, especially when you get a group that big. Somebody likes somebody in that group. It's not necessarily like a duo or a trio and you're like, I'm not connecting with any of these two or three. But, when you get that kind of massive size that they produce out of K-pop, somebody's going to have a favorite in there. And I think the companies behind them are super smart. And a lot of those guys that run the K-pop companies have a very global perspective. It's what we were talking about earlier. They aren't just looking for their market initially. They're looking for a global footprint out of the gate. And I think a lot of the people here in the US, maybe, they're looking for a local market initially. They want to crack America because it's huge. And then if you get something beyond that, it's kind of a bonus to become that worldwide phenomenon. Whereas these guys kind of, in my perspective, take a global perspective from the day one.
And a couple more points on Loop. What does the music industry think about Loop? Because you and I think we're roughly around the same age there, John, where, back in the day, artists made their money off album sales and music play on the radio. And now that's completely shifted where they're getting basically pennies for streaming and they have to pretty much tour 11 months of the year to make big bucks. So what is Loop doing for the music industry?
Well, it's funny, when we were doing these deals with the labels, and it took a while to get them done, they all made a comment of we're really glad that someone is reinvesting in the music video business so we can invest in it again. And, I think that says a lot where, this is such an important part. The video itself, would you really understand who Billie Eilish is if you don't see her, if you don't really see that video, if you don't see the wild colors? It's kind of like the beginning of MTV. Would we really understood Madonna or Michael Jackson if we didn't see them on the stage and doing these short form, videos? It created who they were. It created their personalities. So it's a very important part of the business, and especially today where everything is turning virtual, and there will be a lot of virtual things that continue to exist. Live concerts will come back and they will be amazing and they'll never go away. But I think what this has done is it's leveled the playing field this past year for new artists and big artists to find a new way to connect their fans. And Loop helps that. Loop helps create those super fan groups where they could connect with the artist and, really get that music out to public venues, to linear channels, to an app. We try to get the artist noticed, and people need that help these days, especially.
And you mentioned working with the labels. Did you get them all to sign on? Are all the major players involved with Loop?
Yeah, we're excited about that. It's funny because we're really the only ones that have that in-home and out-of-home ability to do that, because we started as out-of-home with licenses for the labels, and then we went to them and said, look, we want to extend this to consumers. It was usually one or the other. If you kind of look at some of the bigger brands, in terms of what they do with music, they kind of focus on one area. So I think Loop was very unique in that way. And that's what we're really excited about, is we're calling it kind of this 360 experience where you can experience Loop, whether it's you're in your house or out of your home or on your mobile phone.
That's great. And so how about for the independent artists out there that's not affiliated with one of these major labels? Are they able to get their videos on Loop?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the first things we did, like a lot of people were trying to do, were these virtual concerts. We had one in April. We teamed up with Twitch and Music Cares, which is a big industry charity. And we focused on the independent artists. We focused on the up and coming one. Frankly, we weren't big enough to get a Gaga or someone like that. That was all iHeart and Fox, and right. They could do those big shows. But we went across a dozen countries, 35 artists, and it was an amazing 12 hours where we kicked it off with a DJ from Hong Kong, and then it went to Israel, and then it went to England, and then went to the US. And it really showed the global footprint in one setting of amazing talent and people that share that same common vision of entertaining people and expressing themselves through their music. And I think that that's something that we want to hold to and continue to help these emerging artists, because they're the ones that need it the most.
That's awesome. He is a domain expert. He is the CEO and co-founder of Loop Media. His name is Jon Niermann. Jon, thank you so much for the time. I really appreciate it.
You bet, Joe. Thanks for having me. People go to loop.tv. We're also a public company, LPTV. So thanks a lot.
You are very welcome, Jon. And that puts a wrap on this episode of the Forbes Books podcast, available for you to listen to and subscribe to on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, or wherever you get your podcasts. And please don't forget the golden rule and treat others as you want to be treated. Thanks for listening. Until next time, adios.
This has been a production of Forbes Books Radio. Find out more at ForbesBooksRadio.com.